welcome back. Another episode in my office at home. How cool is that? I love this, seriously. I'm not gonna lie. It's definitely a struggle to go into the studio is one of those things where I could, get fixed up and get dressed up and all that stuff. And now I'm just kind of like, oh, I gotta put makeup on. I gotta fix my hair. I mean, it is what it is. It's the struggles. And then my husband had to be like, okay, you look beautiful without makeup, but this is your podcast, so you need to make sure you're dressing up for this. So I don't know. Does it matter? Some people are looking at this and they're not looking at it and they're listening. So I would really be curious in the comments, like once you hit the subscribe button, that one on YouTube, and I'm sure there's one on all the other places too, Apple Podcast and Google Podcasts and stuff. But once you hit the subscribe button, there's probably a place for comments. So it'd be cool to hear some of that. So my subject today is hard. It wasn't really what I wanted to talk about, but it's what's on my heart. And I want to talk about strength. I want to talk about mental toughness. I want to talk about emotional intelligence. I'm sorry, I feel like I have a hair in my lipstick or something. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just because I haven't worn lipstick in a week. Hey, I will give y'all a little bit of a thing, we made a commitment January 2nd. I think I talked about this in my first podcast of the year. No sugar, no alcohol. Not that I'm a big drinker, but I do like to have a social drink on occasion. Trim Sticks water and vodka is amazing and only 70 calories. But no sugar, no alcohol for 30 days. And we are at January 16th, and I am holding strong and steadfast in that. No processed sugar. So I am very happy. I'm down like 12 pounds. And I think we talked about when Jamie was on that I'd gained some weight after my grandmother passed away. And I struggled very much with my mentality after that, because when you lose one of your most favorite people in the world, you just don't give a shit for a little bit. I had to get my mojo back. And I think that goes along with mentally tough people. There's not a lot, I'm just one of those people that for the most part, I can pull myself up from the bootstraps and get moving. I've been on antidepressants in my life for about a year. Oh, that was awful stuff. It was actually shortly after Gage's dad went to prison. And I was struggling. I remember sitting in my doctor's office. He's one of the best OBs in the world, and he's just been so good to me. But I was sitting in his office. He's like, "So, how are things going on my yearly exam?" And I just busted out crying in his office. And he's like, "What's happening?" And I'm like, "Well, this is what's happening. I feel like I'm falling apart." He's like, "Okay, let's get you something. It's temporary, but let's get you started on something." Well, he put me on Lexapro at first, and I gained 20 pounds. And then we changed over to Effexor, and I gained 60 pounds in 1 year. I mean, I was my feelings were muted. And shortly after that, or towards the end of me using Effexor, Danny and I met. And I remember him saying something to me like, "How come you don't cry at movies? That's so weird for a girl." And I was like, "Well, it's probably the medicine that I take. It keeps me pretty, I don't know, melancholy, I guess would be kind of the word for that." And he was like, "That's just kind of weird." And I ended up cold turkeying, getting off of Effexor, and that was a really bad idea. I spent I think, like 2 days cleaning the refrigerator. I mean, it was really bad. So I don't suggest that. But I am glad that what I have now is more of a natural option, root and plant based, like the Zing that I take every day. I've been taking it for 6 years, and it helps boost the serotonin levels in your brain. It helps with your mental clarity and focus, things like that. My oldest son took it when he went to college, and it helped a lot with his mental clarity and focus because he has ADHD. So I'm grateful for having that. Also puts you in a good mood. It boosts the serotonin levels to put you in a happy mood. So it's really good stuff. So I have that in my box of tools for my mental toughness, right? But like I said, I can pull myself up from my bootstraps most of the time, and have been doing that for a very long time. And I had a conversation with my husband, and I don't want this to... I don't want this to come across as pretentious or egotistical, because it's not. I mean, you can ask most of my friends, most of the people that know me, you can ask them who is probably one of the strongest people you know, and they're going to say me. Just resilient, you know. And so I asked Danny, I said, I wanted to interview someone about this and like banter back and forth about what that means to them too. And I'll bring somebody on, because I've got a couple of people that I'd really like to like for you to hear what they have to say on that. But I said, do you know someone? Like, do you know someone that we know that is as mentally tough as I am? Or do you know someone? Actually, that's not how I asked the question. I said, who do you know out of my friends that I know that is just mentally tough? And he just looked at me, and it was just kind of a blank stare, and he's like, I don't know. He said, I don't know exactly what you're looking for. I said, someone who's like mentally tough like me. Who do we know? And he's like, I don't. You know, all the leadership books and all of the things that I read, like I'm reading a book called Zig Ziglar's Born to Win, or it's called Born to Win by Zig Ziglar. And one of the things they talk about is mental toughness and surrounding yourself with people who are like-minded. And I work with a lot of women in Xyngular and what I do, and people on our team and people not on our team, and understand that I'm not talking about anyone in particular. It's just generalities over, like, generalizations of 6 years with people. But I don't understand, and I'm trying to be careful about how I say this, but then again, this is how I'm feeling. Like, I don't understand why so many women have such horrible self-esteems. I don't understand that. I don't understand why they don't believe in themselves. I don't understand why they don't think they can do these things. I don't understand why their families don't lift them up, why their husbands don't lift them up, why their parents, their mothers and their fathers don't encourage them and lift them up. My mom every once in a while will say, I'm proud of you for what you're doing. My dad has never said anything positive about what I do. He's never said he's proud of me. He's never said you're doing a great job. The only thing he's ever said is watch out for the IRS. But I'm not a words of affirmation person either. That's like low on my totem pole, right? It's probably down there with gifts. I'm not a big gift person either. Quality time, acts of service. Gosh almighty, I just lost the other one. what is it? Quality time, acts of service, and then there's physical touch, gifts, and words of affirmation. Okay, so I'm quality time, acts of service, probably physical touch, words of affirmation, and then receiving gifts or giving gifts or whatever that is. So it doesn't bother me that my dad hasn't ever said that, but there are so many people that live for words of affirmation, right? And that's one of the hardest things for me to, it's one of the hardest things for me to give to other people because I don't need it. I don't need someone to tell me that I'm doing a great job and that I'm making a difference in people's lives and that I'm changing people's lives. I don't need people to tell me that. I know that, right? I'm confident in the knowledge that I have and what I do. And maybe that's the difference, right? Is confidence. But confidence comes with self-esteem. And I've never seen so many people put themselves down and hear about how their families put them down. Like it is mind-blowing to me. And I know there's people that have been through a lot, and I've been through a lot, but you can't wallow in it, right? I mean, life has to go on. You have to move on. But mental toughness is also like, I mean, sometimes I've been through a situation with how do I want to say this? With a person that I know. It doesn't matter how it came about, but I've been in a situation where, you know, you're the only person in control of how you feel. I'm just giving you the facts. I can't control how you feel about that, right? And so sometimes there's times where I'll let people I don't even know how I'm trying to say this. There's sometimes that I'll let my emotions, I'll let someone get the best of me, right? And so I recall a time like that this girl, man, she got under my skin, and I spent hours walking around my block, listening to Avril Lavigne's Head Above Water, and just crying my eyeballs out. But I didn't wallow in it for days, right? I picked myself up and I kept moving. Okay, so mental toughness to me is no matter what, okay, this is it. And I've been trying to work this out in my head for days. Mental toughness to me is knowing there's bad shit happening, but still getting your ass up and handling your priorities and taking care of your business no matter what. Like, the day that I have to lay Danny to rest, because unfortunately I know that I'm going to be left here without him one day, and that is the sickest thing possible I could ever imagine. But maybe I can only hope that God graces me with being able to go first and not ever live a day without him. But if he goes first, I'm going to get up early that morning. And I'm not going to hide in bed, and I'm going to take care of my business even on the day that it's his funeral, you know, because I care about the people that I take care of, because those people are important to me, because they wouldn't be here if I hadn't told them that I would take care of them, right? So mental toughness to me is getting up, getting off your ass, doing the things that you need to do regardless of how hard it is, regardless of whether you want to or not, regardless of whatever's going on in your world, and just getting it done. Period. That's mental toughness to me. And I know people like that. But there's not many. There's not many at all. And I don't understand it. I don't understand being a parent and not taking care of your kids, being a parent and getting high, being a parent and getting drunk around your kids. There was a story the other night. Jacob has, him and his friends run a Facebook page called Rose City Emergency Media. If you've never seen it, you should check it out. But he also works at iJump, and there were cops in the parking lot, and they were trying to figure out what was going on. And it turned out there were some kids that were in iJump, and they were waiting for their mom to come pick them up. And their mom got a DWI on her way to pick up her kids. Like she was so drunk, it was called in by a concerned citizen, and she was going to come pick up her kids. What the freak is wrong with you people that do that? Like, there's going to be a special place for people like that. I can't imagine putting your children in danger. It was one thing to put myself in danger and put other people in danger when I was a teenager and I was an addict and I drove drunk more times than I probably ever should have and high. But I've never done that with my kids. And I don't understand people that aren't mentally capable of taking care of business, right? And maybe I'm fortunate. Maybe this is a horrible thing that I have, a talent that I have. But it doesn't matter how hard things are or how sad I am. I mean, even the day my grandmother passed, I got my work done. And I was doing my work on my way to her funeral where my husband was driving. I mean, that's the thing. That's mental toughness. Doing it no matter what, whether you feel like it or not. The other thing is self-esteem. Your self-esteem is what you tell yourself. And I talk to so many people on a regular basis, and within the first few minutes of a conversation, they're putting themselves down. Why do you do that to yourself? Don't apologize for everything. Stop putting yourself down. Start telling yourself positive things and good things. I've talked about, creating an I am board with, positive affirmations. If you don't, whatever you tell yourself, whatever you speak out is what ends up, your brain soaks up. So stop it. Just stop it. Like, put some good stuff in your head, because whatever you put in is what's going to come out. So just stop it. Tell yourself that you are kind and good and beautiful and loved and cherished and strong and brilliant and radiant and all of the things. I'm trying to think of all the things that are on my I am board. Be positive. And it's not, I know it's not always easy to be positive. That's way easier said than done. But stop putting yourself down. Stop talking bad about yourself. Stop apologizing and just handle your business. That's it. And self-esteem comes from so many things. But the one thing I think everyone forgets is they don't remember whose they are. See, I'm a child of God. And that carries a lot of weight for me. But you know what? You're a child of God too. And that should carry a lot of weight for you. So, stand up, put your shoulders back, put your head up and straighten your crown. And remember whose you are. And tell yourself those good things, because if you're listening to the bad things, then you're not listening to what God has to say for you. You're listening to what the devil's putting in your mind. And that took me, You know, I sit here and say I'm not a super religious person. I believe in God. I have a great relationship with God. Probably not near as what it could be. I don't go to church. That's a whole nother show of why I don't go to church. I've talked about it in my past, but from my teenage years and stuff. That's a whole nother show. Christians are the most hypocritical people on the planet. I myself can be a hypocrite. I know that. I'm a sinner. Wow. Okay, so I totally digressed. But remember whose you are, who you belong to, and is that how He would want you to talk to yourself? Is that how God would want you to talk to yourself? Absolutely not. So think about that when you start thinking those things. And remember, it takes like 11 positives to counterbalance or counteract one negative that you think. So maybe you need to write down some positive things about yourself. But that self-esteem, no one can give you that. You got to figure out how to find that within yourself. And where that comes from is self-development. I have done so much self-development and read so many books and listened to, Darren Hardy's Hero's Journey was a life changer for Danny and I, for our marriage, for our business, for leadership in our team, for all of those things. It taught me so much. So self-development is huge. So if you have poo-poo, like self-esteem and confidence, go read a book. Like, go help yourself. Like, quit waiting for the world for something to happen in your world to change. Go change it for yourself. Like, just do it. That's the thing. And I don't know how to say it any other way than that. Just pick up a book and start reading. It's really that simple. And the more positive things you put into your mind, the more you're going to believe them. I want to touch on emotional intelligence. Sometimes there's things that happen in life that aren't really what you thought they were. Or maybe it wasn't about you at all. But if it what is it that, oh gosh, Darren Hardy says it, if it offends you, it probably applies to you. Wow, that's a hard one to swallow, right? If it offends you, it probably applies to you. But emotional intelligence is the ability to, let's say there's some kind of miscommunication or whatever, which happens all the time in life. Have the wherewithal about yourself and the emotional intelligence to sit down and have a conversation with someone and actually listen to what they're saying and be willing to admit where you were wrong or how you handled things wrong. And instead of like coming up with what your rebuttal is going to be, actually listen to that person, and vice versa. I have some really, really, really great people in my life that I can have very hard, emotionally intelligent conversations with, and I value those relationships so much because if something's wrong between us, we can squash it, right? We can totally squash it. But if you don't have that emotional intelligence and you just get mad and stomp off, what is that solving? If you're hurt, if someone hurts you, tell them. Talk to them about it. And be willing to hear their side of it, because maybe it didn't have anything to do with you at all. Maybe it just had to do with them and what they were trying to accomplish. But maybe you were feeling guilty about what you did or didn't do, and you took it personally. But be willing to talk to that person and have a conversation with that person, because you're only hurting yourself if you don't. Emotional intelligence is being able to have a hard conversation with your spouse and listening to what they have to say and not throwing things in their face. That's hard, right? Because when you fight with your spouse, the past comes up. And you're not always going to agree on things. But emotional intelligence is also knowing when to hold them and knowing when to fold them, right? Know when to walk away and know when to run. Nobody's running anywhere, but it's just a song. And if you're not familiar with Kenny Rogers, you should go listen to that song. I just don't know why it's so hard for people to love themselves. I mean, do I have bad days? Yes. Do I have days where I don't want to get out of bed? Yes. But that doesn't mean I still don't handle all the things that I need to handle that day. I just may do it from my bed. Is this something easy? No, but you have to trigger new habits. I was listening to, like I said, I do a lot of personal development. Ed Milet, The Power of One More. It's a great book. My mentor, Christine, went over, so I've got the Audible version of it. And one of the things he was talking about was that you have to create new habits, like new habits to get rid of the old habits. So if you step into the batter's box and your habit is to tap the batter's box once, well, change that. Step into the batter's box and tap it 3 times, because that's going to trigger your new habit. And it only takes 30 days to change a habit. So in speaking of that, like listening to Darren Hardy talk, 30 days, no sugar, no alcohol. One of the things he talks about are his non-negotiables. And his non-negotiables for him, for his body, is he does not eat processed sugar and he does not eat bread, period. He made a decision for himself, and this dude's got a body like a killer, probably, 2% body fat. I mean, he's a very good looking man, a very good looking specimen of a man, right? But he doesn't put those things in his body. Well, we all know that one of the number one causes of cancer is processed sugar. And yet we all put that poison in our bodies on a regular basis with sweets and cakes and goodies and yummies and all that and candy. And I am a fiend for candy and sugar and all that. So for me, if I can make it this 30 days, I wonder how much further I can make it. So that's another question with mental toughness. Do you challenge yourself? Or do you just give up? Because trust me, I've given up. But those habits, like when you're sad about something, maybe instead of going to the cabinet to get a cookie or chips or whatever it is that makes you feel better, because we're emotional eaters, instead of going to the cabinet, maybe you took a walk around the block. Those habits that you change, or maybe you picked up a book and read, or maybe you listened to a song that lifts you up on your phone or whatever, but change the habit. And when you change that habit, the thought process changes. So whenever you tell yourself something negative, think of something positive to knock that out of there, right? All of this is possible. It's possible for you to change your thought process. It's possible for you to change your mind. It's possible for you to learn emotional intelligence. It's possible for you to build your self-esteem. And it is possible for you to teach yourself how to have mental toughness. All of these things are possible to teach yourself. So that's why I don't understand why people don't do that for themselves. You have plenty of time to watch Yellowstone. maybe you should be doing some personal development instead. And I don't say that as being on a high horse. I say that as like, do something to improve your life. What are you doing to make it better? I have another little tidbit that I want to throw in here. And this came up in conversation with my best friend today. Her stepdaughter has filled out the paperwork for being in the military. And this falls into mental toughness as well. And I want to read something to you before, because I think this goes for men and women. So before I go into this little story, hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. And weak men create hard times. I'm going to read that one more time because it took me a minute to get it. Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. And weak men create hard times. Y'all, with this world and what's happening, we are coming into hard times because we are bringing up and creating very, as a society, weak people, weak women, weak men. And here's how I know this. Well, one, look around. Nobody wants to work. Two, this young lady filled out the paperwork for joining the Navy. And they went over all the things that they talk about and what their procedures are and things like that. And my best friend almost lost her shiznit on this military recruiter. They handed her stepdaughter a card and said, this is your stress card. It's the size of a business card. You can keep it in your pocket, in your front pocket. So when you are in boot camp and your sergeant or whoever your trainer is that day is yelling at you and it's too much for you to handle, you can pull out your card, your stress card out of your pocket, and they immediately have to stop. I'm going to let that sink in for a minute. Are you freaking kidding me? People like that aren't going to be able to defend our country. Are you kidding me? Do they not understand this is the military? Do you think if we go to war with China and one of these kids who has a freaking stress card in their pocket running through the trenches or what? I mean, okay, let's just go back to Vietnam. I mean, can you imagine somebody pulling out a stress card and laying on the ground in fetal position and holding their stress card up and the Japanese aren't going to hurt you? Like, they're going to be like, oh, it's okay. You have a stress card, so I can't mess with you. Are you kidding me? That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life. And not to mention the fact that if you don't have the balls to go in the military and know that that's part of protecting your country and that's part of what you're giving up your rights to be able to protect your country, not really giving up your rights, but you know what I'm saying. Like, that's part of it. Like, you could potentially go to war. That mental toughness that they're teaching you in boot camp and in military itself is in case you're ever like captured. I mean, if you're brought into like a captive situation and they're torturing you, do you think you're going to be able to pull out a freaking stress card? Are you kidding? What kind of mental toughness are we teaching people? Seriously, this is not good. This is not good for the future of our country. This is not good for the future. And I can tell you what's probably going to happen in those militaries, in the boot camps. And Kelly told her stepdaughter, she's like, if I ever find out that you pulled that stress card, we're going to have a problem, but you're going to have a bigger problem with your platoon, because whoever pulls that stress card, I guarantee you that sergeant may stop yelling, but there's going to be 2 hours of PT for that whole platoon, and then you're going to get your ass beat by soap in a sock and somebody holding the sheets over you while they beat the shit out of you. I mean, that's the reality of boot camp. That's what it used to be. You know, if one person screws up, they're going to get their ass kicked. That's just it. And that's part of it. Do I agree with that? No, but that is also part of the mental toughness and growing, and the things that I don't agree with all the things that happen in military. I think there's some really terrible things that happen in military, and I know there's some really terrible things that have happened to people, so I don't want this to be taken out of context, because I'm not worried about offending people, because it's simply, if this offends you, you can just not watch it, right? And you can not subscribe to it. That is your freedom and your free will. But I'm mind blown. What are we teaching this generation coming up? Do you really think these kids are going to protect us? Do you really think these people are going to take care of us in the old folks' home? I mean, like, you're raising your kids to run around restaurants and scream loud in the grocery store and have no respect for anyone else around. And let me tell you something. Nobody thinks your kid is cute but you. That's it. Nobody thinks your kid is cute but you. Okay? Teach your children manners. Teach them respect for other people. I mean, I just feel like we're raising a society of feelings rather than reality. And feelings can be all over the place. Reality is just real, you know? Anyway, so ask yourself, are you mentally tough? Do you do the things on a regular basis? Do you do the things on a regular basis to handle business, to get stuff done? What are you doing? Are you doing personal development to help yourself become more mentally tough? Are you doing personal development to help yourself with your self-esteem, or any of the things that you struggle with? What are you doing to change it? Because you need to be doing something. You need to be doing something to better yourself, because you have a purpose here. And your purpose is to make a difference in this world, not to just be mediocre, right? We weren't put here for that. God put us here to do great things. And that includes taking care of your mentalness. And I say ness because sometimes it's a mental mess, right? But also make your mess your message, right? If you struggle with something, I mean, this isn't hard. This is a podcast. Anybody can do a podcast. Anybody can put it out there. You never know who's going to listen, who's going to hate it, who's going to what. But you can always put it out there. And maybe talking about the things that have happened to you, or where you've gone and how you've gotten to where you are, maybe those things will help someone else. That's my hope in this, is I want to be able to help people. And I say this all the time. You have two choices when you wake up every day. You can choose to be a victim of all the things that have happened to you and wallow in it, or you can choose to be a survivor and fight for it. And you have every right to be a survivor. You're worth it. You have to know you're worth it. You have to tell yourself you're worth it. And you have to tell yourself you're worthy because of whose you are. I'll never forget that when I did go to church, that was a sermon that I listened to. Our pastor at the time, Richard Luna, did a sermon on that, and it changed my perspective for sure about the things that I tell myself and how I talk to myself. So how do you talk to yourself? Because I guarantee you, your kids, even as young as they are, they're watching. They're watching for sure. So remember whose you are. Remember who's watching. Remember that you are strong and you are capable and you are worthy and you are all of those things because you are. Okay? Listen, you can please like this. If you love it, share it. Please subscribe. We need to grow. I need more people to see this. I don't want to give up. I don't want to stop. But I also, at this point, am not sure if I'm making much of a difference. Nobody comments on anything, so I don't really see what's happening or what people are thinking. So I'd love to know that stuff. If it's worth your time, just leave a heart if you liked it. I mean, something. You don't have to say anything. Just put an emoji. If you hated it, leave a poop emoji, whatever it is. But anyway, you can find us on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, what else? YouTube. I don't know. I think there's a bunch of them, but we're out there on all the stuff. So again, this is Allison Unfiltered, and I appreciate you listening today. Peace out, homies. I'll see y'all later. Bye.